What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to topic 1.3. This is all in the global tapestry. So far, we've looked at East Asia, Dar al-Islam, and welcome to topic 3, which is on South and Southeast Asia. Again, circa 1200 to 1450. Last time I'll remind you this, please take notes on this stuff. Write it down, whatever you want. And make sure you're not watching this at 2 in the morning because it's really hard to process information at 2 in the morning, and you shouldn't be up at 2 in the morning anyway. You need a good night's sleep. With that said, let's rock and roll on this. First off, you're like, yo, Mr. Curtis, I don't know where South or Southeast Asia is. I got you. Here you go. Number one, this circle right here is South Asia. South Asia. We got India, Pakistan, Nepal, modern day Bangladesh. This area right here, South Asia. Again, this whole area right here is Asia. This is South Asia. This is East Asia. This is Southeast Asia. So these islands down here, including Indonesia, as well as this little piece that pops off of southern China, which is Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, modern day Myanmar, if you've never heard of that place. These are the modern countries that exist in those regions. South Asia, boom. Southeast Asia, boom. Different culturally and just different regions of the world. And the AP World exams, tests that we take, essays that we write will refer to these regions. So you definitely need to know it, which is why I'm kind of going over each of these regions. So you got a general idea of when they're talking about South Asia, what does that mean? What does East Asia mean? You should know these regions and have them memorized and what's there. So here's the deal with South Asia and Southeast Asia. First, in terms of, again, we're kind of going through these cultural developments, government, advances. So in terms of cultural developments and interaction, this area is located, and we'll get into this in the next unit on trade routes, is located on the Indian Ocean trade route. So we're going to see a lot of trade developing in this area. And I don't want to go too much into the trade, but more just like the cultural ideas. First, South Asia is really, really, really Hindu based. So the primary religion of most people in South Asia, and for a while in Southeast Asia until Islam comes along, is Hinduism. And again, this isn't really a review on Hinduism. If you need to go back and review some stuff on that, you're going to need to do it kind of on your own, but just some basic beliefs of Hinduism. So Hinduism, it's a debate about whether it is monotheistic or polytheistic. There are many, many gods in Hinduism, and each town, give or take, I mean, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but many towns in India have their own gods that they worship. And so each god is its own god, and that makes it kind of, in a sense, polytheistic. But Hindus would argue that it's really a monotheistic religion. All gods in Hinduism are originally created by one god, which is Brahma. So all those gods are referred to back by one god. So therefore, Hindus would argue that they're really monotheistic, but generally refer to them as polytheistic. So it's a debate for another day. But all these different gods, which there are thousands and thousands of, originate from the one god, Brahma, who is down here. There he is. He is the basis of the caste system, which I know you know about because everyone always remembers the caste system in South Asia. Comes from Hinduism. It is the belief that as a result of better dharma, which is following the rules and proper rituals and beliefs of Hinduism, you will move up in your next life. Your soul will reincarnate almost up a level of the caste system. And essentially what this does, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but it really keeps people content with where they are. So if you're born an untouchable, you're not like, yo, I'm going to go out and rebel against these upper class people who won't even touch me and make me do the worst jobs. Instead, you're like, well, I'm a good Hindu, I'm an untouchable here, but I want to come back and reincarnate up. I don't want to come back lower than an untouchable. So I'm going to follow good karma, and I'm going to follow the rules, or good dharma, and follow the rules and behaviors. The eventually better dharma leads to reincarnation, and eventually the idea is that you will reincarnate enough to obtain what is referred to as moksha, when you become kind of one with the universe, which is the ideal place that all Hindus are looking to achieve. With that said, I do want to also point out that as Islam develops around 600, and as we mentioned in the last video, spreads with merchant activities, it's going to be much more common. We're going to see Islam and Buddhism, Islam as well as Buddhism, which also which is promoted along trade routes through merchants and missionary activities. We're going to see it very common down here in Southeast Asia. Hinduism had a small presence here, but it wasn't as like, Hinduism is like India. India and Hinduism are like boom up until Islam arrives. And it's really rooted in a lot of cultural traditions. So many people in India aren't going to convert to Islam when it spreads and to Buddhism as it develops. Most people are going to remain, not all, but most people are going to remain Hindu. Down here, that influence of Hinduism and other beliefs really aren't as strong. So as Islam and Buddhism spread into this region, we're really going to see a lot of conversion. And it's going to be much more common. We are going to see some converts in South Asia. Don't get me wrong. There's Buddhists and Muslims who are going to convert in there. But for the most part, and those people who convert in South Asia, you can imagine are going to be untouchables, maybe women, people who have a stake to convert because Islam and Buddhism practice equality and it gets them out of this caste system. But we're really going to see it in Southeast Asia. Also, just a quick side note here, quick map here. I like to do some of these every once in a while just to get you used to seeing stuff in case it ever pops up on a test or the AP exam. This is based on the belief systems in each region. So if you want to pause this and take a good look at it, but this shows you each color represents a different religion. So Christianity is blue. If you come over to the United States, you'll see that the majority of people in the United States are Christian. And if you go down to Mexico, for example, probably close to 95% are Christian. If you come over here to India, Hinduism is in orange. You see the vast majority of people who live in India today are Hindu. And if you come down here, which is Southeast Asia, which is Indonesia, you will see the vast majority of people who live in Indonesia today are Muslim. So I'm just kind of coming back and trying to prove my point. Like Sri Lanka, which is off the coast of India, most people there are Buddhist today. So you also see there's an Islamic presence, the other presence, some Christian presence, which comes much later. But just something to kind of look at here, and you can see the population of religious groups around the world today. So again, I'm just trying to draw this connection of how this stuff that we're talking about in like circa 1200 to 1450 really is influencing stuff today. Also the government structure. So here's the deal, little contextualization. Contextualization is a term we're going to really get going in the next unit, but just a little preview of it. It refers to like what set up this thing that we're talking about here. And I just want to set up this circa 1200, that the Gupta Empire is going to fall in 550. And there's really no empire in South Asia, aka India, for like 1,000 years. And we're going to see a lot of little kingdoms. India traditionally, historically, is very decentralized. A lot of decentralized meaning that there's a lot of different governments, whether they're city-states or little kingdoms or little empires, and it's not ruled by one government. And this decentralization really leads to an influence of different belief systems. When the government can't control belief systems coming in, we're going to see belief systems can spread more easily. So there's not one Hindu ruler making sure Islam and Buddhism stays out. So we're going to see kind of this spread, especially amongst Islam. Not a ton, because like I said, Hinduism is the primary belief, but we do see some spread of Islam. One empire, I just want to point out, which is the Vijayanagara. If you speak, if you're from India, pardon my pronunciation. Really one of the things that this empire, which is on the southern tip here, and is a huge trade center along the Indian Ocean, the empire itself is going to be primarily Hindu, but there is this toleration of religions. Buddhists come in, Hindus come in, and there's toleration. Much different than what we see in Western Europe at the time, where as Christian monarchs gain power, they're slaughtering and forcing conversion of non-Christian people, whether it's Jewish people or Muslims. We see a huge toleration of religion. This is going to be kind of a theme in South Asia from here on out, which is this toleration of religion up until the 1900s. Also, one other movement is called the Bhakti movement. And this Bhakti movement is really a Hindu reform movement. And a reform movement is a movement that tries to fix problems that they see. And they really saw some corruption in Hinduism, where these top people, these Brahmins in Hinduism, really were kind of running the show. And they wanted to reform it and go back to focusing on personal devotion. That as an individual, you don't need to go to a Brahmin to find spiritual salvation and eventually obtain this moksha, that you can do it individually, and that you personally can focus your devotion, whether it's on your own particular god that you worship, or gods, or singing songs to bring in more of a connection. And a lot of religions today, if you go to a religious service, do sing songs, and that idea of personal devotion and singing songs, poetry. The Bhakti movement focuses on yoga, and what you do individually can help you move up through reincarnation. This is still around today. It's going to influence other religions in this region, focusing kind of on this individuality of spirituality, if that makes sense. And it's going to spread. So I just want to point these things out. This is kind of just a quick overview. We're going to really focus on South Asia and Southeast Asia more in Unit 2 when we talk about trade routes. But that's what I got for this. A little shorter than the other ones. Hope that's okay. As always, any questions, any comments, please write it down. Let me know. I'm out.